All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Forge at Roy Place. And this is a wonderful opportunity to kick off our third season of Forge Fireside. Today, live in front of a studio audience, as well as from our online attendees and those of you who couldn't be bothered to show up, who will watch the recording. Thank you for joining. And Forge is we call it Forge Fireside because really it's where we can talk about the entrepreneurial fire in each individual. This is, as I mentioned, now in its third season. I converse with CEOs, founders, investors of the brightest success stories. If you have someone that you would like to see on Forge Fireside, send an email to info@forge.arizona.edu. What is Forge? Forge is the University of Arizona's entrepreneurial mindset and future workforce unit, supporting the students and communities where the university operates in finding the opportunities and resources to translate ideas to impact. Subscribe to our newsletter and follow on social media. Erica asked me to say that, to stay up to date on everything. For those of you joining online, please do stay muted, and we are recording, and ask your questions through the chat. Those of you in the room, you're welcome to ask a question at the end. I'll repeat it for the folks online. And of course, you are, as always, welcome to stick around for Soft Work Thursdays here at Forge. So my guest today is Shelley Miles, the CEO of the Singleton Foundation. Welcome, Shelley.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me here today. And it's very fun to see all of you.
So normally we have our guests who don't live in Tucson Zoom in. Shelley actually flew in to be here with us today. And so I
like to be in person and get to meet people in person.
Yeah, Zoom just doesn't quite do the same, does it?
No.
We kind of follow a format, start from sort of the earlier days and then walk forward to today and talk a bit about what I call the entrepreneurial journey. So let's go back to school.
Oh boy.
What did you study, and did you aspire then to be a CEO?
Well, I started out thinking I was going to be a music performance major. I was a violinist and very quickly decided that wasn't for me. And didn't know what I wanted to do. I liked marketing, I liked retail, and thought I'd do that. Ended up, just because it was a couple extra classes, becoming an accountant and taking the CPA exam. I had no idea that I wanted to do that or anything else at the time.
Wow, violin to CPA. So what would you say now to college you then?
I would say, don't worry about it. You're going to end up following your nose anyhow and go learn as much as you can.
So your first job out of college?
I was at KPMG. I started there as a junior in college. I gave violin lessons, graded accounting papers, and worked at KPMG doing income taxes, and then became an auditor. And then I got to go to the Walt Disney Company.
So before you jump to the Disney Company, what did you learn anything about yourself in your time as an accountant and an auditor?
I did. I learned that I loved going to see all the different businesses and what they did. I found it so fascinating how they worked, what their products were, and I loved doing that. It was a lot of fun. Being an auditor was actually a lot of fun because you got to look at what everyone else did.
So you jumped from being an auditor to Disney. How did your role there begin?
Well, for the first 3 months I was there, I was an internal auditor, and I got to go all over the place, auditing the different partner companies we had, our licensees, film productions, and then I audited the royalty system for the recorded music division, Disney Records and Music. And at the end of the audit, the head of the music company hired me as the head of finance the next day. I'd been at Disney for 3 months. And it was quite exciting and wonderful. I was all of 23 years old when I took on that role, and just jumped in.
So was it heady stuff for you as a 23-year-old?
I guess so. To me, it was just a problem to solve and something to figure out. I got to take all the things I found during the royalty audit and implement that and change how we did a lot of things, and find and fight for the things that our operating people needed, the kinds of reporting that sales and marketing needed, and how that interacted with production. And then my boss decided to go off and create Disney TV animation. And during the time as head of finance, all of a sudden I found myself in charge of music publishing, distribution, building a new warehouse, and all these interesting business things. And suddenly he gave me, well, then I ended up in charge of product development because of something that happened with Garfield. We were trying to bring Garfield to Disney because there weren't a lot of good movies at that time. And I love the comics. So I went home and sat up all night and wrote Garfield comic strips about why Garfield should come to Disney. And the next day I was given the role in charge of product development. And so when he left to start Disney TV animation, he asked me to take over records and music worldwide. So now I was 28.
So out of the frying pan into the fire. How did this experience serve your future roles?
Well, I was very excited because I got to look forward instead of backwards and look at the things we wanted to do. And we got to do a lot of really innovative product. We did Totally Mini, which was a female focused album, and Mousercise, and lots of fun things. And we're doing a lot of recordings matched with books. And so I learned a lot about publishing. And I really liked running the business, and I liked making the bottom line grow and all these exciting things. And then Michael Linton, who went on to run Sony Pictures, he asked me if I would distribute a video game that they wanted to make about Roger Rabbit because they couldn't license it to anyone. And so I soon found out that it meant learning how to make a video game because I didn't know anything about it. It wasn't just distributing it, but nobody was making the game. There was not going to be a box or any of the things you needed. The distribution was very different. And then it turned out we only had 9 months to make this game. And I was having a baby.
But other than that.
And so somehow we got it done. The gentleman that created that game is now one of my best friends. And it went gold. And we got it out on 4 platforms in 9 months at the same time as the movie came out. It was one of the first times. And so they allowed me to get the what became the Disney Interactive Group going. And I had no clue what I was doing. So I called up everyone I could find in the game business and asked them how it worked and how you were supposed to set it up.
So I know how this gets answered, but let's pause for a second and jump forward to Singleton writ large, the organization, and then we'll come back to how that experience might have come in handy. So can you tell a little bit about Singleton, what its mission is, and also why do you see that as important to society and communities?
So the Singleton Foundation, our mission is to inspire entrepreneurship and to make financial, I'm going to call it competence, accessible and engaging for everybody. And it's important because over half the population can't even answer basic financial literacy questions. And if you think about it, how can you be in charge of your life if you're not taking care of your money? And the other side of it is inspiring entrepreneurship, because business is what creates jobs. it's what grows our communities. It's what gives us a robust community. And so it's so important, and they really go hand in hand, because you need to know about finance to operate your business and to be able to start a business or run a business and still manage your life. So they all go together.
So, you know, how do you see it manifested today? How do you see the mission of Singleton manifested? And maybe we should talk a little bit about Venture Valley.
I'll talk about a little bit about all our programs.
All right.
So we're trying to figure out how to solve this problem, and how to, at least, it's such a big problem that we knew that you can't do it by yourself. You've got to plug into a system. And so we went out and said, how do we engage people? It seems from my research and calling everybody I could find in this industry, that there's all the financial curriculum in the world that you could want to have, but not a lot of people are using it. And so we had some hunches why. We thought that, well, first of all the young people I know walk around like this. I even do it. And that we're competing with tons and tons of messages and tons of high quality entertainment and distracting things. So how do you get their attention? And I found a video from a very well-known university, and it was all about compound interest. And it had 3,000 views over 7 years. And I thought, oh, okay, they wasted their money. Nobody saw this work. And then I looked up one from a bank that had a lot of money, and it had 12,000 views in 3 years. It was better, but, and then someone sent me a cat video, and the cat video had 58 million views in 9 months. And I thought, bingo, we think that's what we want to be. So we teamed up with George Washington University's Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center, and we did some research and started researching it. Why is it that people aren't engaging? And we found out that it's boring. People think it's complicated. They don't want to look it up until they want something. So it's the Google generation. And it's taboo to talk about money in a lot of cultures. And so we decided that we were going to take a different approach. The first program we launched is Million Stories Media. It's mobile first, free, bite-sized, entertaining content that's designed to inspire you, either in entrepreneurship or to give you, let you see yourself or someone you know, to let you know you're not alone, and help inspire you to do something, and then match that up with cool learning stuff. And then our first program we started working on, which is the second one to launch, is Venture Valley. And the idea behind Venture Valley is, you know, we know that over 70% of the population plays games a lot. I know my children used to not like when I came home and tested games till the middle of the night, but it was really fun. And so it's kind of a fast-paced business simulation game. It's multiplayer, competitive, esports style. And in it, you get to be an entrepreneur. You can play by yourself. You can play with your friend. You can play on teams. You can play in solo mode, or you can play in multiplayer mode. And the idea is you can be an entrepreneur no matter who you are. You get to see yourself being an entrepreneur, and you get to pick your avatar and make it look how you like. Mine has blue hair. And you can start out with a very simple business, learn some principles as you're playing, and then build that up into an empire with several businesses and some very complex businesses. So you might start walking dogs, and you might end up running a robotics factory, you know, where you have all those things. And because we wanted people to actually do it, rather than make an edutainment game, we made a pure entertainment game, one that's really fun. We brought in an old colleague of mine from Disney, who's kind of a legend in the game business. He worked on all the Segas and John Madden football and all kinds of things to make sure it was a good and fun game. And then we wanted to make sure that all the learning was under the hood, but also world-class. So we worked with a number of universities, including U of A, to make sure that what we were doing was correct and the modeling was correct. And there goes Venture Valley. And as you know, we are about to have a tournament right here on September 30th from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. And it is going to be a lot of fun. And by the way, there are really cool prizes too. There are cash prizes. There's a $5,000 prize pool. Top prize is $2,500. So if you haven't signed up, sign up and come play. But we're very excited. And we found that by the time people play Venture Valley for a short period of time, they understand P&Ls, they understand balance sheets, and they understand why they work, because you get to see through the decisions you make how that impacts your business. And you also can apply strategies through boost and adversity cards that you can play the boosts on yourself or your team, or there might be a little adversity that comes the way of your competitors, because we have businesses, we have competition.
So I was going to make a joke about Venture Valley being an overnight success, right? But that's the entrepreneurial story. It's actually been what, 4 years in the making?
4 years in the making.
But it's always, everybody always notices when you finally release, when you finally put it out, and then it's, oh, well, it's an overnight success.
Right, when you start that garage band, right? And you see the one hit wonders or whatever, whoever has a big hit, no one sees the 10 years in the garage.
And I think that's really a great entrepreneurial story. Is there a lesson that you could offer in terms of the evolution of Venture Valley for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so we started out with an idea. We started to build a prototype. We looked at it, it was really boring. We pivoted. We started building some more. And then we put it out there and did some testing and got a lot of feedback, and people said, gee, I wish it was like this and it'd be more fun, or we'd see where they drop off in their play. And so it's a story of iteration. It's a story of partnership. We have great partners that are helping us along the way. Not only do we have our development teams, but we also partner with Super League Gaming, who's a world leader in competitive play, esports and tournaments. We have Discovery Education working with us. So it's a real story of community, and now it's out and it's ready to go.
When you talk about that, what I hear, because I think a lot about the mentoring sessions, is have the right team, do the market research, pivot when it proves that it's not the right direction or that the market won't bear it. I think too many startup stories are filled with crashing and burning because the founder refuses to change from the original vision or refuses to listen to the customers, or have the right experts around to help guide them through it. So
well, boy, do we have a lot of experts helping out with Venture Valley. And one of the interesting pivots we made was not only did we decide to go multiplayer, which greatly impacted how all the modeling worked and how the simulation part worked, but it was also looking ahead at the game business where all of a sudden you needed to be multi-platform as well. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to play Mac and PC against iPhone and Android, and then you have to be able to go home and switch devices. And that's really the expectation of where we're all going.
I want to also take a quick moment because Singleton has made what I would consider a significant investment of time and energy in Tucson. And could you talk a little bit about that choice and what your aspirations are?
I would, but before we do that, I'd like to talk a minute about Slingshot.
Oh, right, of course. How could we forget?
So Slingshot is our newest application, which is a phone app, and it is for entrepreneurs, or really for anyone that has ideas, but it's a chance to really take your ideas, have a chance to explore it and develop it a little bit. And it will take you through the problems that you want to solve, the kinds of ideas that you have to solve those things, what kind of community you have or need around you, who might your customer be, what is your value proposition, what do you think you might price your services at, what do you think it's going to cost, and all the elements to get that beginning plan together. And then it gives you a wonderful web-based output of what would be considered the start of a business plan, so that you can have something you can share and get feedback from your friends. And it's like doing a business plan with your thumbs on your phone, a little bit like playing Mad Libs, and it's a lot of fun. We had a contest inside of the Singleton Foundation, and we had ideas ranging from sunscreen that doesn't stick to the sand to what do you do to keep your dog off the counter?
Get a shorter dog.
Yeah. One of my friends, one of our coworkers has a dog that knows how to move furniture to hop up.
Get a dumber dog.
Get a dumber dog. And back to Tucson. So we launched our community commitment last year here in Tucson to engage with a lot of the different local organizations. Our relationship with U of A is partly coming out of that. And we're participating with Forge in a lot of ways, not only with Venture Valley and the tournament, but in the Venturing 101 classes. We're using a lot of Million Stories content, particularly our Faceplant series and our Goal Getter series. And we're very excited about that. And we have some very cool series coming. We also have a new product coming out early next year called Level Up, which goes with the financial literacy side of the world, which is another phone-based app, but it's really a goal achievement system. And so a way for you to track your financial goals and help you along the way. So in Tucson, we're here. We have a wonderful program with United Way. We have a wonderful program with El Rio Hospital and a number of others that are really participating. We're very excited about what we're seeing.
You're based in Los Angeles.
We're based in Los Angeles. Carrie Singleton, who's one of our founders, she spent many, many years living in Tucson, is very fond of the Tucson community. Her brother, Howard Stewart, runs AGM, which was a family business, and he was very instrumental in bringing us here. And so the Tucson community has always been very important to the Singleton family. And what a wonderful place to welcome us. We've learned so much, which has helped us improve our programming too, from feedback from people that are using our programs.
Well, and we thank you for being here, because I think we have fought against the coasts, so to speak. I think you were mentioning to me a conversation you've had recently, or a quote rather from Victor Wang, and we've worked very closely with Rise of the Rest and Village Capital, all of whom talk a lot about paying attention to the parts of the country that are between the coasts. And we like to think that we're more than just flyover territory. That
Of
Tucson
course.
has a lot to offer, and a growing, one of the fastest growing communities. Did you want to share what you?
Yeah, I really loved what Victor said, and it was about entrepreneurship. And I'm going to read it because I can't quote him exactly. So Victor, who used to be the head of entrepreneurship for the Kauffman Foundation and is now the founder of Right to Start, he wrote this article that appeared in Inc. I think it was last month. And what he said is, everyone matters in entrepreneurship. You don't even have to start a business yourself. You can build connections by introducing friends, starting or growing businesses who might benefit from knowing each other. You can remove barriers by telling your elected officials to make entrepreneurs a priority. You can help by simply giving new local businesses a try. If you like a business, tell your friends. Spread the word about entrepreneurs you love. We regrow America's economy by unleashing our entrepreneurial energy, and we start wherever we are. Connect people, break barriers, and homegrown businesses will rise. And that's what I see you all doing here at Forge.
Fantastic. So Shelley, what do you say to someone who says, I don't want to start my own business?
you know, it's not important if you want to start your own business. There are so many ways to participate. Whether you're an employee, whether you don't consider yourself an entrepreneur, maybe you're a contract worker, you are an entrepreneur. And we're all solving problems. And certainly the world is changing every day and it's accelerating. The statistics I've heard about how many new jobs are going to be invented by 2030 that we haven't even heard of today, we have to be in a position to learn. So what I say to people is, don't be afraid. Problems are opportunities. There's always going to be problems in the world, and that's where the opportunities lie. Go out and help solve them. Take a risk, because if you don't take the risk, something bad might happen anyhow. So take the risk. If you fail, grab what you can learn and take it with you and just be better.
One of the things that I really love in our Venturing 101 curriculum, it starts out by doing an assessment for each person to kind of see, where do you sit on that spectrum? And then we have a later module on failure and resilience. And I think it's so important for people to understand, number one, we all have different tolerances of risk, right? Some people want to take that really safe route. Others, you know, damn the torpedoes. But the other side of it is that you will fail, right?
Everybody fails. It's part of life.
Do you have a particular story that you think back on that you see as formative in your career?
Boy, there's so many, and I have had several failures in my career. I've been in several failed startups. I've been in some successful startups, some that we've sold well, some that we barely lived through. And I'm trying to think of one of the better failures that we had. I worked on a company for a while called Kids List. And we had created the largest database of parent-child activities in the country. And we thought this was going to be huge. What we didn't realize is by trying to be national quickly, that we were spread so thin that we couldn't get traction in any one place. And there was this little tiny startup doing what we were doing in Santa Clarita. And they were eating our lunch because they really had that little tight community around them who cared about them and were spreading the word. Whereas we had this big overview, and of course the whole thing collapsed. And it's a lesson that is handed to me over and over again. Start small, stay focused, build a community before you start expanding.
To use the community word, and I think one of the last questions that I have is, the community seems to sit at the heart of Singleton. It's at the heart of everything that you do and talk about. Why?
Well, none of us is an island, and we all have skills and things we like to do, and they're not all the same. And so there's so many ways that other people can help you. You might be an artist, and you might be an engineer, and you might be brilliant at marketing, and you might be brilliant at sales, and you might be the finance guy. And we need all those, and we need to work together and lean on each other. And by helping each other, that's how we grow. And it's also how we grow where we live, right? The heart of American businesses is really Main Street businesses, and new businesses are where the jobs come from. So we all support each other. If you think about your local bakery, how many times did they bring stuff to the high school soccer game, right? Or some mom who makes cupcakes. You know, all these things are part of our community and part of what makes it work. And so we have to support each other. If you think you can do it by yourself, you're bound to fail. You really need others, people you can learn from. I get to learn from people every day. That's why I love my team so much. They all know more than I do about what they do and about a lot of other things. And we listen, and the letters we get from people, they're actually using our products. They know more what they need than we know what they need. So, you know, community is very important, and it's what can cheer you on when you're down.
So we'll move on to some open questions for the audience. I'll remind those of you online, please post your questions in the chat and we'll have those read in. And those of you in the room, I'll repeat your question for the folks online. While you're formulating your question, and I mean, Shelley, you're hired because you already did the plug for me. Friday, September 30th from 2 to 9 p.m. Venture Valley Tournament and Venture Expo. I want to make sure I add that part in because one of the things we're trying to do is encourage students who have startup ideas to come down and be here in that milieu to be able to present what they're working on. We will have a number of guests who will be coming through, folks from the venture capital world who represent quite a bit of investment power, who are really curious to see both what kind of brilliance we can see in the students on the Venture Valley tournament, and also what kinds of venture ideas people bring to the expo.
And who knows, if they're really good ideas, they might end up in a future version of Venture Valley. You never know.
Your name here.
But as Brian said, it's going to be really fun and prizes.
Yes. So any questions in the room? Yes.
You talk about the importance of community with the change from the pandemic, having a hybrid situation. What do you see the challenges and what do you see the benefits? Or how do you see that moving forward?
So I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but I know you're asking about the benefits and the challenges caused by the pandemic.
Building a community in a hybrid world.
Oh,
So the fact that we're now moving into kind of this, we have no choice. I mean, case in point, right?
Yeah.
Today we're doing this both in person and online. Then the question has to do with how do we develop it if we're sometimes on a camera and sometimes
it's a really good question because we've been able to get a lot done largely being remote during the pandemic, but there's so much value to being in person too. So we try to do some of both. I think the opportunities that Zoom has created is I can be in meetings all over the world very easily, and we can work with people that are further out. Our game development team is in Scotland largely. And another one of my friend's companies, his engineering team is all over the world. But there's also a lot of value in coming together as people. There tends to be more laughing, and how do you encourage that in a Zoom world and not getting Zoom burnt out? I think anything that presents challenges like this, also presents a lot of opportunities. And so we certainly have better video conferencing than we did before the pandemic, which has made a difference, and more collaboration tools. The SaaS products and all the Asanas and the Slacks and all these things, ClickUp, those have really grown during the pandemic. So I think there's both sides of it, good and bad. And I think we've learned as people to be very flexible.
You said your development is in Scotland?
For the game, our development team.
The Forge team needs to go visit them. Yeah, I think we need to go
and one of our producers here has built a pub, a very authentic Irish pub in a 10-by-10 garden shed in his backyard. And so the Scottish team is coming over so we can invite them to the pub.
You used a word, and it's become kind of the common word that's used when we talk about hybrid. We talk about in person, and then we use the word remote. And the word remote
It's
itself
kind of
connotes
bad.
distance, right? It connotes being somewhere else and far away. And not suggesting that we can solve it by just changing the word we use, but I think it is important for us to understand the modalities that people learn with, and that we have to recognize all of those in everything that we do. I loved your point about the fact that you have to be multi-platform, because I might be playing it on my PC at one time and then on my mobile device on another, or I'm going to go out back on my tablet, and right. And if you've stopped them from being able to do that, then you've stopped them from experiencing
And participating.
I think that is, for me, how you build the community stronger is you remember where the technical barriers exist and you make every effort you can to reduce those. And understand that there will be those people who say, no, I have no intention of showing up in person. I will be somewhere else for this. And how do we engage them? So on that note, Linnea, do we have a question online?
Lynette, can you say that again? I couldn't hear you.
Sorry. So when you're starting out and you need people for your project, when you don't know.
So when you're starting out, you need people for your projects. How do you find those individuals? How do you get started?
The process of approaching partners or things that you
How do you
don't
approach
know
that?
prior to.
Particularly if you don't know.
You know, one of the new videos that we're working on in a new series called B School, one of the founders said the way he did it was in the industry he was interested in, he called everybody he could and set up coffees for anyone that was willing to talk to him. And the most important thing he asked them was, who else do you think I should talk to? And got introductions that way. You can also start out with your friends. When we were starting the Singleton Foundation, I cold called everyone I could find that had a similar mission. Some people took my calls because no one had heard of the Singletons at that point. They're a very private family. And some people did. And some of the most important people in the industry were the ones that were willing to call back and welcome me and just have a conversation. So all kinds of ways. There's also a lot of online forums that offer opportunities. You have a startup community here. You have the university here. You go to all those places and look for people with common interests. There's Reddit, I mean, all kinds of places.
I love the point about who do I not know, or who can you?
I love
introduce me
that
to?
question, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I also love asking, what am I not asking? Or what
Mhm.
haven't I asked that I should be? Because especially if I'm trying to meet people I don't know, or services I'm not familiar with.
And one thing I've learned over the years is most people want to help you. People like to be asked how they can contribute. And a lot of times those people will become your best friends or your investors.
Even better. And the other,
Then we have Pat, like to know more about the face plan.
so Pat would like to know more about the face plant series.
Okay, well, we decided to do the series Face Plant because we know that failure is so important. And it's one of the ways that we learn. If you trip and fall down, you learn that you need to stand back up and brush off your knees and keep going. And so we went out to interview, and most of the stories on Million Stories are real people, real stories. We don't have any actors. And so we went out and found people that were willing to share their faceplant stories. We're now about to release our second series of Faceplant, and we have some really exciting, interesting people. We have Dr. Hong, who was an illiterate child in Singapore, and she grew up to be a professor of special education. We have Damien Escobar, who you may know is a very famous violinist, plays hip hop. I'm talking about his faceplant. We have Chef Kwame. And so it's going to be a really exciting new series. And of course, in our original series, we have a lot of wonderful stories too, including Glozell and, oh, there's so many, I can't think of them. We have our stuntman who was a Marine, all kinds of different stories, but they're all about people who are willing to share how the face plants that they've had in their lives are some of the most valuable learning experience. And it's really, what do you do with those lessons that you've learned? How do you take what you've learned and go, oh, I should do this instead of that.
I should probably also mention that Pat helped us develop our failure and resilience module. So he is I guess you could say a subject matter expert on. Pat has a long career at 3M, which I'm sure included a few failures because I've heard the stories. But that's exactly it. That's trying and failing. What do we learn and how do we proceed? Other questions in the room? Yeah, John.
So, questions about product. So when you're working on a product team, you usually have the creative, the designers, maybe the developers. They have an idea of what it should be. Then you have the business. You have the market analysis, the opportunity, demographics, the target. It seems like you're a microcosm of both sides. Because you had this creative music side that came in, and even with Garfield, and then you became a product owner. So in yourself, did you ever have conflict on what you felt was creative and good and something that was marketable versus what the evidence told you and the way you should be taking the product?
Yes. Sometimes you have to make a creative call. Sometimes you have to make, because otherwise your product has no soul.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to make it, sometimes the marketing data is wrong. And sometimes you may not be going for the broadest audience, right? And so you see a lot of long tail products that are very successful now, or more, and some of the most successful things on YouTube are really niche-y products, like, you know, guys pulling cars out of the swamp and rebuilding them. And there's a very specific audience. I like to watch nerdy ballet classes. So you just have to really decide what it is you're trying to do. For us in the Singleton Foundation, it's very important that our product is accessible to everyone. So that's one of the key filters that we look through. We try to make sure that our product is representative of all different kinds of people with all kinds of different backgrounds. And it really comes down, in the case at least of Million Stories, is it a good story? And is it going through the filter of our mission? Is it moving our mission forward? So that is kind of the main filter we go through. And there's a lot of things we can do that are popular that wouldn't meet that criteria. So our mission is about being hopeful and giving people the powers that they need to really run their own lives, you know, take charge, be the CEO, stand on their own 2 feet, and don't just let life happen, own it. And so that's really what we're trying to do. So we look at everything through that filter. So the creative people, and then we'll have the educational and learning team look at it. If it's an entrepreneurial show, we have Ryan and Landon and the entrepreneurial team go through and make sure it's sharing those lessons that we want to teach. And then the story people fight virulently to make sure that it's good and it's creative and it's done well. And the marketing team is looking to see, yes, who is this for? And so we spend a lot of time. We also do we do an audit of all of our content to kind of map it out against the census in probably 15 different categories. And while we're not rigid about it, we certainly use it to inform our decision making. And then there's always the finance people, because if you can't pay for it, you can't pay for it. You got to find another way. Jeffrey Katzenberg used to talk about in the movie Pretty Woman, you know, the scene where she's ringing the doorbell, or no, he's standing outside the door and she's not letting him in. They did it that way because they didn't want to pay to shoot a whole nother scene because they were running out of budget. And it turned out to be a better creative choice.
We were talking upstairs earlier about the 2 hemispheres and how, you know, being able to combine those and find endeavors in your life and your career that utilize both of them is so valuable and rewarding. You know, we work, for example, with the College of Fine Arts, and as the dean likes to say, artists are the original entrepreneurs. And I think the challenge is that as an artist, you spend so much time honing your craft and just learning how to, you know, dance or sing or play an instrument, that when is the time to teach you how to also represent yourself
Right.
as an entity, as a business? How do I market myself? What price should I charge for my time? And I think John's question really gets at how do we encourage and build both sides of the brain equally so that we can, and I think the answer is through some of the things Singleton does and offers. But any other thoughts to add to that?
Yeah, I think we all have both sides of our brain. And you tend to spend time at the things that you love. And just in living a very full life and in trying to solve problems, I think you tend to engage them. I don't really know the answer to that.
I know, at least from our point of view, it's why we talk about it as a mindset.
Yes.
We say an entrepreneurial mindset because we're really getting at the notion of critical thinking and problem solving.
That's everything.
It is. It'll come back and help you no matter what you decide to go and do, whether you start your own company or you go work.
Right, and being forward looking and being willing to recognize opportunity, which sometimes knocks very softly. And you've got to open the door, take that risk.
Well, it sounds to me, Shelley, like you've always been willing to open the door to a lot of new and interesting opportunities. I think it's fair to say it was not a straight line from college to where you are today.
There are many times in my career where I looked at my resume and said, how do I explain this? And then I thought, well, I took something from each thing I did. And when this opportunity came up, I felt very excited because it kind of used all the weird experiences I'd had and pulled them all together in one package. And so it was a very fun choice for me. And I didn't realize how much of a startup it was going to be. Carrie and Will had big, wonderful ideas. And then the problem was, well, how do you execute that? And sitting alone in a room for 6 months, trying to figure out, well, how do we start? But from each thing we've done, we've learned a lot, and that's guided the next things.
And you did the most important thing, which is you started.
We started.
So I would like to thank you very much for your time and being here today, and thank you to the Singleton Foundation for your collaboration and partnership on our curriculum, on Venture Valley, on all of these other things. I want to give a special shout out to Paul and the Student Venture Pathways team for building this really great connection with Singleton. I also need to acknowledge Graham for his production assistance and Erica, who has helped market and put us online. And lastly, thank you to Alicia, our community manager, who's disappeared from the room, but who will be moving on to another role in the community.
Exciting.
So, yes, very exciting. We are thrilled to hear what happens next for her.
Well, thank you for having me here. And thank you all for all of what you're doing here. It's such important work. And you're really building such a great entrepreneurial ecosystem here. And we're very excited and honored to be part of it.
Thank you, Shelley.